Hello everyone, again this is Victor Neustroev, and today we are going to analyze the game between Nic Carter and Elliot Tadic. I'm sorry, but we have to watch Sicilian line again, because many of my students play this variation. However, please join such tournaments that I organize, and we'll see more different openings so that I can analyze them and this video can become more interesting. But at the same time, if we analyze only Sicilian lines, you can learn these variations through these videos, because I cover many positions that you can face with if you play Sicilian. Okay. Anyway, d4, c takes d4, knight d4. Here Nic is playing with white pieces, Elliot is black, a6, knight c6, queen c7, bishop e2. Knight f6 should be played in this position, of course, but bishop b4, for some reason, Elliot decided to play this move. Why? I have no ideas, actually. No, I have, because I asked him. He told me that he tried it once and then liked or something like that, but no, this is a mistake. How to play in this position? Just castle. Why? Because nobody cares about this pawn in such a position when black pieces are absolutely undeveloped. Then, for example, rook b1. What we are threatening? Bishop b2. And you can also notice that these dark squares are really weak, and it's difficult to play such position without a dark square bishop. What do I usually say to my students when they start playing Sicilian? I tell them that, guys, please keep your dark squared bishop on the board, or trade it only for the enemy dark squared bishop. Okay. What's then? For example, knight c6. Then bishop b2 can be played. Bishop b2 first, and then after queen moves, knight takes on c6, the pawn on g7 is hanging, and black loses a rook. This is just an example. Of course, it's not obligatory for black to lose a rook, but I don't really see the reason to take on c3, because it gives only a counterplay for white. If not to take, then what was the reason to trade the bishop for a knight? Because the bishop was really important. Okay, fine. However, Nic didn't play this move. Instead, he played bishop d2. And now bishop b4 makes sense. Knight f6. What to do in this position? Well, probably just castle. Why? If bishop c3, then bishop takes on c3, knight takes on e4. Then bishop b4 is okay, and black experienced some problems, but at the same time I can say that this position is playable for black. White lost a central pawn, so maybe white has a full compensation, of course, but I'm not sure that white is much better here. But I'm absolutely sure that it's difficult to play this position for black, even with extra pawn. For some reason, Nic decided to play f3 and to protect the pawn. Knight c6, attacking this knight on d4. Knight takes c6, b takes c6, castle, d5. This is a normal move, atypical for such position. I would prefer to castle first instead of playing this move. What did white do after d5? Of course, he could play bishop d3, and maybe this is the best move in this position. Just king h1 or queen e1, two other options. But for some reason he decided to apply a tactical strike. But the problem is that this tactical strike didn't work. Knight d5. What's the idea? The idea is that if bishop takes on d2, the queen is hanging. That's why here, for example, black has to take with the pawn, but then he loses his bishop. However, it's not the end, and here black can play queen b6, and it's a check, after which black takes the bishop and plays with extra piece. However, in the game, black didn't notice it and decided to take here with the knight to protect on b4. E takes on d5, bishop d2, queen d2, c d5, but it's still a good position for black. a4 was played, not the best move. This is how white wants to get some activity on the queen side. It's a mistake. Here white's task is to play on the king side, maybe also to play c4. Okay, castle, a5, bishop d7, b4. Now the best plan is just to play rook c8 to blockade the c pawn, then to attack the b4 pawn. Rook fb8, rook b1, bishop b5 to trade the bishops, fine. And here of course rook should take, because this is how black blockade the b and c pawns, and these pawns are the objects of the attack. After a takes on b5, black creates a protected passed pawn for white, what means that one of the black pieces should be tied down to this pawn. a6. This is a mistake, because now this pawn can be attacked many times. How to win this pawn? Queen b6 immediately, actually. Queen b6, queen f2, and then simply rook a6. However, rook b6 was played. It's a normal move. Queen d3. Queen a7, with the idea to take on a6. Queen d4, rook takes a6, queen trade, rook trades, and then king f2 was played. This position is winning for black, but king f2 is an accuracy what makes the position absolutely winning. Here, of course, a rook a2 should be played. What's the idea of this move? Just to take the pawn on c2. And if white decides to protect it by playing rook c1, simply rook b2, taking the other pawn, because it can't be protected by anything while there is a pin on the second rank. Instead, rook c6 was played. But after rook b2, of course, the white rook is passive, but at the same time we continue playing. It's not absolutely winning. It's winning, but black has to take some efforts. King a3. No, h5 was played. I don't know why, because here the best plan is to play with the king to get it closer, then e5 and so on. So h5, king a3, e5, f4, f6, fine, but the king should be on not on g8 but on e6. F takes e5, f takes e5, king d3, king f7, rook a2 to probably attack these pawns, but at least king f6 is a good move. I would play king e6 by the way here, because I want to be the king closer. Okay, king f6, c3, g5 was played. G6 is enough here just to protect the pawn, because black should focus on the center. e4 should be played. e4, then rook c4. The only task is not to blunder the pawn on d5. That's why the king should be on e6. g5, rook f2 check. Again, black should move to the center. King g6, rook f8. Here, of course, e4 should be played, but okay, rook c4, rook d8 attacking the pawn. d4, c takes d4, rook takes b4, d takes on e5, and now the position becomes equal. King f5, for example, then rook come to g8, and then rook g4 is a good move, and black is still better. But in the game, instead, it was played rook to b1. And then, if, for example, in this position, something like rook f8 is played, then it's a draw. The number of pawns is equal, the black king is cut off, white king is too close to the distant passed pawn. Also, white has its own passed pawn and can promote it soon. For example, rook a1, king d4. Or actually, rook a1, we can force a draw by playing rook f6. King g7 and then rook f5. King has to play to g6 back to protect the pawns, then again check and retreat. However, here, I don't know why, but after rook b1, Nic just played e6 and blundered his rook. King e4, and then the game is over. So this is how he lost. Okay, that was another game in Can Sicilian. What you may remember, so please remember about bishop b4. If you play such positions for white, it's okay to sacrifice the pawn on c3. White definitely has a compensation. Sometimes it's okay to sacrifice the pawn on e4. For example, in actually in the variation that happened in the game, here knight f6 and castle, bishop c3, bishop takes on c3 and knight e4. Even in this position, white has a compensation. But at the same time, bishop b4 is a dangerous move, and if white doesn't know how to play, it can give some small advantage to the side who knows the theory better. Okay, thank you for your attention. We will continue with more games.